My name is John Nkum. I have two main areas of profession. I consult in organization development, and I'm also a strategic planning specialist, in addition to being a retired Baptist minister. This is what I've been doing for the past 40 or so years of my life. And peace building and peace and security sector has been one of my exciting sectors of work. Outstanding thing about partnership, global and local partnerships in the peace and security sector, especially around peace building, has been an unequal partnership. Primarily, that should be expected because of the differentials with which the partners come into the field in terms of access to technology, wealth, and ability to mobilize resources that are very different from the northern partners compared to the global south partners. There's also a differential in the government partners versus the civil society partners. There's a differential between what the private sector partners can leverage and bring on board versus what the, if you like, the state partners bring. So the partnership by structure has been unequal, and there's nothing wrong with that. But what needs to be addressed is whose agenda is being attended to in this partnership. Who determines the agenda, who determines the funding needs, and who determines which actions are appropriate and sustainable if we are talking peace building. The structural causes of conflict have to deal with three main areas: bad governance, which alienates the citizens from the government, the issue of intergenerational differences, where the leaders are primarily older stock and the majority of the people are very young and have no voice in government decision making. Then the issue of persistent poverty, unemployment, and if you like, hijacking of natural resources from their owners. These structural causes remain, and they show themselves symptomatically as symptoms of conflict. And what I see partnership in peace building doing is addressing the symptoms when conflict arises, rather than going to the root causes. Number two is that even in dealing with the symptoms or the manifestation of conflict, the issue has not been who are the major players. And I beg to say, in many situations where the state or the government is a perpetrator of injustice, is a perpetrator or party to the conflict, how then do we continue to work with government that is party to what we want to resolve in a way that is not only through advocacy in terms of building civil society voice, but developing a true partnership involving the citizens, their alternative representations beside government. Because in most West Africa, you'll find the citizens are represented through civil society structures, through traditional structures, and the formal government. But inadvertently, all global or northern partners tend to want to work with the government rather than the alternative structures in which the citizens are represented. Now, if you want to deal with the root causes of this and not just the symptoms of the violence in the streets, you need to address the issue of structural unemployment. You have graduates in West Africa, master degree holders, who want to work but are not getting work. And the issue of entrepreneurship development, the issue of job creation and manufacturing, adding value, is not being addressed properly. So we deal with these, street actions as if they are sufficient peace building initiatives. This is where functionally the inequalities arise. The multi-pronged approach of not only going for government or going only for civil society or citizen groups, but working with all these structures simultaneously through a multi-stakeholder engagement mechanism that enables the silenced voices of the youth and women and children to be brought up at equal par with government and civil society organizations. Because in West Africa and many African countries, civil society have become alternative governments and do not necessarily speak the voice of citizens. So we need to find a way of getting citizen movements as structure that is valid in themselves. Youth movement, women's movement, community structures, traditional leaders and their systems that are on the ground. We need to work with civil society movements that are expressed, are given opportunity to express themselves genuinely alongside the other voices. Let me just talk about one small example in Ghana, Occupy Ghana, as an example. It's primarily middle-class citizens of Ghana who felt disenfranchised, unheard, and they are professional, and middle class are professionals primarily. Their professional technical opinions were not finding expression in government decision and government policy and in the crafting of partnerships and programs. So what happened was that Occupy Ghana came up as a movement, citizens movement, to take space so that their voices can be heard. It started leaderless. There was no leader that you could identify with. And when Occupy Ghana became effective was when this citizen movement then began to engage professionals to take up the issues in court, represent that voice, that voiceless presence. So some members of the movement then volunteered to represent their idea, their complaint in court, and got court decisions to stop government in taking certain action. So when the movement is supported technically, financially, to engage professionals to represent their opinions, then slowly we have these possibilities that appear, like political or social unrest becoming organized engagement in terms of policy shifts that government can listen to. Those are the things that we haven't paid attention to in the global partnership arrangements. And I dare say, at the risk of being too loud, that it is cheap to work with the state. It is very cheap to work with government. And it's cheap to listen to their rhetoric. But the actual thing is, consistently, the governments are distanced from the citizens, and there's an intergenerational distancing where the government are primarily older stock generation and the population are very young and have agitations and interests that are not necessarily responded to by the government. And that's why the new generation of conflict is finding expression in the streets, is finding expression in robberies and all kinds of things. Because the only way these young people can express themselves is to be anti-establishment. And that because we don't have a mechanism currently in terms of the partnership and the financing mechanisms that enable these people to access professional help to get their opinions addressed. And often it is politicized. Are they being funded by the opposition? Is this a third party trying to find expression? Most of the conflicts are not politically motivated. They are developmental, socio-economic, primary needs of existence. So these existential needs are not being addressed in the partnership and funding mechanisms that we have in place at the moment.